Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the BFG Podcast. Today I'm here with Jonathan and one of Jonathan's old friends, Ash Parmar, who is a law and order advocate. And we're going to talk about a little bit how the current cost of living crisis and the rand rate situation is affecting the law and order community and the retail community. So welcome, Ash. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And good to see you, Jonathan.
So, how does this current situation affect you as a retailer, first of all?
So, in my case, I've been a retailer for coming up 20 years in October of this year, but almost around 2019, middle of 2019, I've been sort of speaking quite publicly about crime in general that's been happening in the retail setting. And the key moment for me on a personal level is we had two robberies, aggravated robberies at one of my stores in 2019 within 4 days of each other. And I guess that in a way has left a big scar on my psyche, which has kept me motivated to be vocal and I guess give those who don't have a voice a strong voice, because I'm someone who I'll speak my mind, what I see or what I sort of want to call out. And it is, I guess, a bit refreshing because people do a lot of simple talk or trying to sugarcoat things, but I just say it how it is. And I've been quite lucky as I've been going on this advocacy journey. A lot of people has, I guess, they've helped me by giving me information and all that kind of stuff, which kind of led to running for Parliament last year under ACT, because for me and the people I was representing at the time, the policies they were presenting kind of showed a solution to a problem. And here we are today. Obviously didn't make it to Parliament, but for trying once in my life ever, I missed out by a couple of spots. So I gave it a good nudge. And but my advocacy work is still continuing. I'm still doing a lot of media, talking to people about what I'm seeing out there on a personal level, and again, calling it out as it is.
Are you going to try again 2026 or maybe a council next year?
I actually don't know. I've been asked this question so many times. I generally don't know, because last time I was running purely on emotion. It was something that was quite emotive for me. It was somewhat personal, but also a number of people I knew were impacted by an issue. Obviously, that issue still hasn't gone away, Blake. As you could see, it's still out there. There's still a lot of crime happening. So who knows? Maybe I will. But I'm like I said to you before, I'm still quite active, still doing a lot of media, still putting a lot of statements out, calling things out as I see it.
And has it been difficult coming from the other side of the political perspective to work with all sides of the political spectrum?
Not at all. Believe it or not, I was probably one ACT Party candidate that was not attacked, as because people saw my advocacy that I was doing for 4 or 5 years previously. They kind of saw me as not someone who's just gone into politics, has always been involved in politics. If anything, I probably shocked a lot of people by being involved as a candidate for a party. So they could see that I've tried to work with everyone. I've tried to work with the police. I try to work with the previous government as well, try to get them to come to Hamilton, in particular where I am, which I dub as crime capital of New Zealand. And it is actually crime capital of New Zealand, especially from a youth crime perspective. So I worked with every side, Jamie Strange, who was the member of Parliament for Hamilton East and the seat I ran for to try and highlight the issues. I still have a really good relationship with him. I play football with him. He's a really, really nice guy, but obviously we have a different member of Parliament, Ryan Hamilton, and I work with him closely and trying to highlight the issues. So, yeah, and I've been saying that to you, Blake, off camera before. You got to work with both sides. You got to talk to everyone and bring them on a journey.
Of course, because, if you talk to all sides, it can sometimes give the other side a bit of perspective here in your story, and I'm hoping that will be part of my journey to be able to give the right side that's currently having a few disagreements with everyone a new perspective when I got my journey with the disability. So, um, so as a retailer, what else do you hear from other retailers that are having this problem?
I think for a lot of people, retailers in particular in New Zealand, they have migrated here from somewhere else. And quite predominantly, obviously, Indian community, and then a lot of the other South Asian community, they tend to be retail store owners. And I think they're just quite sick and tired of it, because in their heads, the problem is quite simple. It is in their heads because, it's not like they haven't experienced or seen these problems from their own other countries they moved here from, but they just see the problem being so simple. Especially, I can send you a lot of data, like this is before I got into politics.
Yeah.
Like in Hamilton, the local police head, Bruce Bird, he's the district commander, still is. We were talking about 50, 55 youths at the crux of it who were doing bulk of the crime. And the way the retailers looked at it and go, well, if we can't sort this out, what's the point of talking about any of this? If we can't bring 50 to 55 youth into line, what's the point of spending so much money on fire cannons, bollards, and all that kind of stuff? And what they also saw is, obviously, if you go through the whole offending thing in Hamilton, there's all these spikes that come, and they directly correlated at the time to when the kids or the youth gang leaders were rounded up. You arrest them, and there's like a drop for 6 to 8 weeks, and then you see a massive spike again, which at the moment, it seems like it's quite flat, since the election. Things haven't spiked as much. We've had a bit of crazy sort of post New Year's, like in Huntley, we had 4 aggravated robberies in a 10-day period, which is quite a lot, and it's quite traumatic. And these victims were not particularly Indian or South Asian. These were garages in particular they were hit. So they've got staff from every ethnicity. Yeah.
I remember what I was going to say before my mind went blank. So one piece of advice I got really early on in my advocacy journey when I was a bit younger, going back to what we were talking about earlier about working with all sides, was, especially when it comes to candidates, you should work with whoever's available, because at the end of the day, even if you don't agree on the same side of politics, they can still help you. And I've had the pleasure of working with so many people that from so many different parties, and even though they can't share their individual opinions in the house, I've always found that they do have their own opinions, and they're happy to help you from a constituent perspective. So from that perspective, I really appreciate what you were trying to do, and I hope you have better luck in the future for that part. So that's what I want to say, because I do admire you for what you're trying to do for the constituent side. Jonathan, do you have anything to ask or add or banter about?
Yeah, so I keep up with Ash because he's a proactive advocate for retail, particularly on LinkedIn. And one of the things that you've highlighted, Ash, is, and which is what you just spoke about, like the police can do a really good job and they can pick up the offenders. Eventually they can track them down, find them. But then there's a gap where the offenders aren't actually being dealt with all that well. Can you tell us some more about that in your perspective on what happens post-arrest?
So, post-election, I've been reading a lot of reports. One in particular was actually put out by Labour just before they were, they left the government. This particular report was done by Mike Bush, an ex-police commissioner, and they were talking all the research, all the talking they did was about these youth facilities, which is the biggest problem. As you said, they round them up. They've got 2 options: either to take them home, can't take them home because home is so dysfunctional, is the reason why this youth is offending in the first place. There's no balance, there's no system. But the report talks about these facilities are just not fit for purpose. They're not well-funded. Some of them probably need to be a lot stricter in terms of movement, and I can send you both the link if you want to read the report. What I find currently frustrating, Jonathan, there's nothing being talked about the new government in this space at all. Obviously, there's a budget to come, and maybe I'll be watching like a hawk what they do or say in this space, because there's absolutely nothing being talked in this space, especially in terms of youth facilities, which are quite severely both underfunded and understaffed as well. And the other thing is, and Blake, you might want to maybe add 2 cents to it when I finish talking about it. COVID has taught us that there was a lot of poaching at every government department, because the country was staffed off different workers at different levels, the highest, the middle, the lowest. And seems like some of the harder to work in government departments struggle the most because, let's face it, if people can get a nice cushy job in the education sector, get paid a bit more, they don't want to work for OT because it's a dysfunctional phase, it's so much challenging. And I think that's what this particular report alluded to is they lost a lot of their good staff and OT really struggles with this. And they're the ones who look into you, who are dysfunctional. So they're losing a lot of their continuity, a lot of their staff. The turnover is so high. So those are the things we got to look at, As you've seen, I'm not the one who wants all the kids to be locked up. That's not going to happen with anything. But is that something you could talk about, Blake, in terms of?
So the thing I'm disappointed about is what they're doing around cutting, services, people in Wellington, especially at the moment, because we're already, as you say, we're already so short. So I can't understand why the Prime Minister wants to cut back even more. If he wants to make changes, he should make changes in other areas, like, as you say, focusing on this crime. Why would he, it's very disappointing that when resources are already so stretched, he wants to cut them even more, and I'm sure we can all agree on that. Quite disappointing. And every government's going to make a mistake, whether you're left, right, or centre. And it's just disappointing that when resources are already so short, they're deciding to cut more government people. It just doesn't make sense in that regard for me. And that not based on what side I'm on. It's just disappointing in general, because I was disappointed when the other side cut some as well. But the fact that this government's cut it even more is really disappointing to me, especially when resources are already so strict, especially you and me being advocates, Ash. So I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
Well, I mean, there was quite a bit in the media 2-3 weeks ago around, the funding being cut. And it was, at first, when I looked at it, it looked like, it's a bit of a fault at a bureaucratic level because, politicians, and I guess I have that label now, I'm a politician too. It was probably quite easy for them to say, oh, no, it's just a mishap, I didn't know. But then you look into it, and it does look quite bad, from a politician's perspective. If you made a decision and you have decided to perhaps not provide enough funding for a sector, that you can't just blame it on people who are pushing paper in the office. You as minister probably need to be more around it. But since then, and because I knew I was going to come on your show, I've spoken to a couple of people I know on ACT side of things, and they've said their read on it was that the funding has run out and there's new funding to be announced when the budget comes, and they're hoping it will be at a level that is satisfactory. But again, I'm not part of those decisions. It's just what I'm sort of hearing from other people. And I hope they stand to their word, because it is very important and it's quite urgent. And it's something you're obviously very passionate about, Blake, and you push these issues really, really hard. Because these people are very, very vulnerable. For me, even if I'm feeling quite scared to go to work, I can still go and maybe, close the door, look after myself, my staff. But people with disabilities, they really generally have nowhere else to seek help.
So, what would your initial reaction as someone wanting to get into politics? Were you quite disappointed that they did it quite out of the blue, personally, or did it not really affect you at first? I know you said it was shocking by the time you read through it, but was your initial reaction like, I'm not too keen on this, or I don't know how to feel about this, or I'm on the fence? How were you sort of feeling?
Blake, specific in terms of funding, government funding for any issue, I do try and read into it quite a bit, because that's in particular something I'm quite passionate about. So when I look at it, it kind of feels like I was going through the same emotions I was going through when Labour was in. And we were trying to put our issues out there in terms of security, the problem. But at the time, the government solution was, we'll give you a fog cannon, we'll give you a bollard. And you can go through all of the interviews I did at the time. I highlighted, this is taxpayers' money you're wasting. And to relate to your point, some of that money probably could have gone towards disabilities. They've spent $36 million on cameras, bollards, and all that kind of stuff, instead of looking at the crime issue from the perspective we discussed before. So yeah, I do take it you're interested in it, and I personally really hate wastage, especially when you're not looking at the issue, solving the problem, just throwing money up in the air. So I would actually ask you that question. How would you feel? Would you like $36 million more to go towards disability services rather than wasting it on bollards and fog cannons?
Of course, I would say yes, of course, but I also understand the need for the fog cannons and so on as well. So it's a really hard one.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I like that, because you could have gone and criticized them. It's like, yeah, give me all the money. Who cares about the retailers? But I like your answer. That's quite good.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
But as I said to people that I'm working with the other day, even if they do put more funding in, our side is still going to be fighting for more, and your side will do what they need to do. So it's going to be an interesting journey to see what happens going forward.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to. I can't talk much about it due to privacy, but I'm really looking forward to what's coming up in the future. I'm doing a lot of work off camera, and I can speak to you more about it later on. But I'm really looking forward to trying to work with all sides to see what we can come up with to make a improved plan. And I'm hoping that once I speak to everyone, that there'll be a new perspective, and they hear my story, that might give them a bit of a different view. It may not, but I will at least try. All I can do is try.
Have you managed to get in touch directly with the minister, Penny Simmons?
Well, that goes into what I can't talk about.
Oh, right. Oh, something exciting's happening. Okay, that's good.
I'll tell you off camera.
Okay, that's all good. I was going to say.
Hey, Ash, really quick, really briefly, if you were able to say, in one sentence or two sentences, what does a solution look like? What do outcomes look like that retailers are advocating for? How do you describe it really quick, really briefly, so that any person could go, oh, that's what they're after, and that's what a solution could be?
I'm going to give you my answer, but I'm just going to give you a bridge before, okay? Because you've made it a bit harder. So what retailers want is a break from all this kind of stuff, right? So here's your answer. What they want to see is as a recognition, crimes like round raids, aggravated robberies, or even shoplifting at the highest level. At the least, they want to see the offenders being detained in the short period, however short you might want to define it as, call it 2 to 6 weeks. So you can give that break, because that's what we've seen repeatedly. And you talk to the police, they'll tell you as well how disappointed they are. They do a good job of rounding people up for various crimes, and they're literally back on the street the next morning, do it again, and sometimes out of desperation. So I think, to give you the answer, and I'll repeat it, is they want to see the detainment, because that's what the victim wants. Okay, I have become a victim, this is impacting me, but I want to see others being protected from this behavior. because we can't allow that. You saw Rotorua stats as well. Some of these youths are doing 40, 45 ram rates. It's, and we're probably setting these kids up for further failure, Jonathan. I'm sure you could see it as well. You've been in Rotorua for a long time. If you're going to allow a kid at age 12, 14 to involved in 45 serious crimes, what is it leading to? So, yeah.
So, one more topic before we finish off, just very briefly. The one thing I'm concerned about is when we're trying to stop ram raids, it's not very good that we don't have good facilities to go into for our youth offenders to go into, because there's been, I don't know how much you can say to that, but there's been all those allegations of abuse and so on and so forth from the various providers. So that needs to be improved if we want to get our youth into these facilities.
Yeah.
What I would say.
Yeah,
because having that abuse is not good, in my opinion.
Like yourself, Blake, I've learned a lot, which I wouldn't say on a recorded show, and I'm learning a lot more by talking to different people as I take even deeper interest. And yeah, the abuse and the carelessness at these facilities, it is quite alarming and shocking to see the least. And I think it should be sorted out with urgency, and I'm biting my lip, not trying to say too much, but it's quite shocking. And a good, well-meaning journalist should probably take some serious interest in this space. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what side you're on; it just needs to be sorted out.
Yeah, I mean, these are children at the end of the day, and they're part of our community. So, and like I said before, to answer Jonathan's point, if we're going to allow them to get to that number of 35, 45, what is it leading to? We know the answer. It's leading into gang membership, and that leads to a lifetime of offending. So the sooner we can protect them and care for them, the better it is for everyone involved.
So as we wind down here, Ash, where can people find you if they want to follow your journey to see what you may do next? Or do you have a public page, or do you have anything where people that are listening or watching could be able to see you or follow your journey?
So Blake, 5-6 years ago, I did a very expensive course which I learned nothing from. It was $5,000, but the only thing I learned from this course was the term omnipresence, which is not being anywhere but being everywhere. So in my case, to answer your question, I am everywhere. Every social media handle you can think of, just type my name into it, Ash Parmar, and obviously you can Google my name and maybe Google Ash Parmar with crime. You'll see all the commentary I've been doing. But obviously your Facebook, your Instagram and LinkedIn, I'm there and quite active, and I respond to, if you private message me, I respond to everything. I like to engage with people who have got an opposing view or an idea. I think Jonathan and I, we butt heads, but we always give each other that respect because we can actually see what the other party is saying. So, yeah. So that's something for you as well, Blake, as you are gearing up and getting more serious about your advocacy, think about being omnipresent. What other platforms could you be on and activate them all every morning? So
there's a few reasons why I can't be on public platforms, which I'll tell you off camera as well.
Sure.
It's because he's too good looking. He gets too much traffic. Everyone comes looking for him.
I'll just finish wind down here. So thanks for coming on the program today, Ash. And if you want to see this video, you can like and subscribe on YouTube. You can listen to it on all your favorite audio platforms. And we'll see you on the next one.